November 1944. A small, rain-swept town in the Lorraine region of France. The cobblestone main street is quiet, save for the rhythmic clatter of a wooden sign being hammered into the soft earth at a central intersection. The village council has just voted unanimously. They want to honor the man who saved their children from a German sniper's bullet. They have carved his name into the wood and prepared a ceremony of thanks. But before the mayor can raise his hand to signal the beginning, a military jeep skids to a halt. A junior officer jumps out, clutching a clipboard, and orders the work to stop immediately. He claims the name is an affront to military policy and insists it be torn down. He does not know that someone is already drafting a letter to 3rd Army headquarters. Someone who will ensure that justice is not just requested, but enforced. This is the story of what happened when dignity was denied and then restored. A village wanted to honor a fallen liberator, but an officer stood in the way, blocking the truth of a sacrifice to preserve a broken hierarchy. Before we continue, make sure you subscribe. We tell the World War II stories that show what happened when dignity was denied and then restored. Mayor Pierre Lefebvre stood 58 years old, a man whose life was etched into the very soil of the Lorraine village he had led for 2 decades. He was a man of quiet resilience, a village elder who had weathered the occupation not with fanfare, but with the steady persistence of a man guarding his family. He had watched the war carve hollows into the faces of his neighbors and had buried enough friends to know the weight of a life lost. But nothing had burned as deep as the sight of Sergeant Leon Parker. Leon, 25, from New Orleans, Louisiana, had been a member of a segregated unit passing through. When the German sniper had fixated on a French child in the square, Leon had not hesitated. He had moved with a singular, terrible purpose, shielding the child with his own body and absorbing the rounds meant for a future he would never see. Pierre had personally carved the wooden cross that marked the spot where Leon fell, and for the mayor, the petition to name the main street after the soldier was not an act of politics. It was the only way he knew how to keep a debt of honor. Lieutenant Colonel Frank Harrington, 43, was the military governor assigned to the sector, a man whose authority was draped in the crisp, starched lines of a tailored uniform that had never seen a trench. Born into a prominent Milwaukee family, Harrington walked through the ruined streets of France with the polished, rhythmic click of heels that seemed to ignore the mud entirely. He believed, with the cold, unyielding conviction of a man who measured the world by rigid social hierarchies, that the war was a temporary disruption to a natural order. His office was a testament to his detachment, filled with clean paper and the heavy, silent comfort of his administrative power. He frequently argued, in private meetings and in letters back to the States, that honoring individual black soldiers in such a public manner would create unrealistic expectations among the troops and complicate the delicate work of reintegration once the guns went silent. To him, the mayor's request was not a tribute, but a structural error to be corrected. By November 1944, the Allied advance across Europe had slowed to a grinding, miserable crawl. The initial momentum of the summer breakout from Normandy had collided with the harsh reality of the Siegfried Line and the unforgiving terrain of the Lorraine region. Supply lines were stretched to the breaking point, and the German military, though reeling, had turned the landscape into a lethal maze of fortified villages and hidden artillery. Occupied towns like the one in this story were caught in the crossfire of this transition, existing in a strange fractured state between liberation and the crushing demands of military administration. This was a time of immense organizational chaos. The American military bureaucracy was tasked with managing thousands of liberated municipalities while simultaneously pushing a massive army toward the Rhine. In this environment, authority was often decentralized, leaving local military governors with unchecked power to interpret army policy. While the high command was focused on logistics and combat operations, minor administrators frequently took it upon themselves to enforce their own narrow-minded codes of conduct, often ignoring the local customs or the genuine sentiments of the people they were supposedly there to liberate. In previous instances, Many officers in similar positions had chosen to turn a blind eye to public displays of gratitude, or simply failed to enforce their personal prejudices with any real vigor. But in this sector, the administration was different. The governing command had established a pattern of suppression, consistently denying petitions for recognition and quietly burying the stories of soldiers who did not fit their rigid vision of the post-war order. It was a culture of institutional apathy, where the contributions of black troops were systematically sidelined to avoid what was termed a complication of the military hierarchy. The village's request for a street sign was not merely a local administrative matter, but a direct challenge to the silence that had been imposed across the entire district. In the town square, the mayor stood by his empty wooden post, waiting for an answer he already feared would be no. "Mayor, I have reviewed your request for the signage, and I am denying it," Lieutenant Colonel Harrington said, his gaze fixed on a stack of files on his desk. "This is a formal petition signed by every resident in the village, Colonel," Pierre replied, his voice strained but steady. "It is an inappropriate request, Mayor, and I will not entertain it further. A man died in our square, sir, protecting a child. I am aware of the incident, but naming a public thoroughfare after an enlisted man of that regiment sets a precedent that my command simply cannot support. The people of this village do not see a regiment, Colonel. They see a man who gave his life for their future, and I see a breach of administrative protocol that would invite unnecessary complications during this delicate phase of our occupation. Is it a complication to honor a hero? It is a complication to raise false expectations that could jeopardize the order we have established. This is not about order, Colonel. It is about justice for the fallen. You will refer to the regulations on public displays, Mayor, and you will find that I have the final say on all civic naming conventions in this sector. My village will not be silenced on this matter, sir. Then you will be disappointed, as I have already blocked similar attempts in the neighboring sectors to ensure consistency across my jurisdiction. With all due respect, your consistency ignores the humanity of the man who died. My concern is with the efficacy of this occupation, not with the sentimentality of the local population. If you refuse to allow the sign, I will have no choice but to escalate this request to the 3rd Army headquarters. Do what you must, Mayor, but you will find that General Patton's staff has no interest in reversing my administrative decisions." Pierre turned and left the office, his resolve hardening with every step toward his jeep. He drafted the letter to Patton's headquarters that very afternoon. The report reached Patton within the hour. Patton's jeep pulled up to the gate of the administrative office, the engine cutting out with a sharp, metallic finality. 4 stars gleamed on his steel helmet, and the ivory handles of his revolvers caught the pale light of the Lorraine afternoon. He stepped out, his tall frame cutting a distinct silhouette against the gray stone of the building. Inside, the room fell into an immediate, suffocating silence. Officers scrambled to attention, eyes fixed straight ahead as the general walked in unannounced. He did not look at the maps on the wall or the reports scattered across the desks. He walked directly to Harrington's office. Patton studied him. He didn't say a word for a long, heavy moment. Then he spoke. "Tell me, Colonel, why is there a wooden sign sitting in a puddle outside the village square?" "It is a matter of protocol, General, regarding the naming of streets. And what exactly does that protocol forbid?" "It forbids the naming of public property after individual soldiers, especially when it disrupts the established administrative guidelines, sir." "And who decided this individual was unworthy of the honor?" "I made the determination based on the necessity of maintaining order and avoiding potential complications with the local population, General." Patton's eyes narrowed. "So, a man dies saving a child. 200 people want to say his name every day, and you decided that was a problem? It is about the broader implications, sir. We must maintain a standard that doesn't invite these types of sentimental deviations from command policy." The general took a slow step forward, his voice a low, steady hum that filled the entire room. "You talk about policy as if it were a fortress. You talk about order as if it were a stagnant pool. You think you are protecting this army from complications. All you are doing is hiding from the truth. A man does not give his life for a policy. He gives it for the people standing next to him. He gives it for the people he is sent to protect. You sit in this office and you measure the value of a man by where he came from and the color of his skin. You think that makes you a governor. It doesn't. It makes you a clerk who has forgotten what he is here to do. You talk about reintegration, but you are the one who is failing to integrate the very reality of the sacrifice being made on your behalf. You have a choice. You can pack your things and leave this sector, or you can go to that village and lead the ceremony yourself. You can apologize to those people, and you can hammer that sign into the ground with your own hands. Comply or face the consequence. Either way, this ends today. Harrington went pale. He didn't speak. He just nodded, his gaze dropping to the floor. November 1944. A small village in Lorraine, France, stands quiet in the autumn rain. 200 villagers gather in the town square, their faces hardened by years of occupation, now softened by a singular, desperate act of gratitude. They have voted unanimously to name their main street after Sergeant Leon Parker, the man who gave his life to shield a local child from a German sniper's bullet. But at the village outskirts, a crisp, starched military order stops the sign painter's hand. The American military governor denies the request, declaring the name inappropriate for public display. The village remains silent, but the petition is already moving up the chain of command, destined for a desk that does not care for protocol. When the truth reaches the 3rd Army headquarters, a 4-star general will settle the debt himself. It is November 1944. A small village in Lorraine, France, rests under a heavy gray sky. The streets are quiet, save for the crunch of gravel under American boots. 200 villagers gather in the town square, their faces lined with the fatigue of occupation and the solemnity of loss. They hold a petition, a simple request to rename their main street in honor of the man who died to save their children. But the military governor has just shredded their dream with a single, bureaucratic stroke of his pen. He claims the name is unsuitable, that it disrupts order, and he refuses to budge. The village remains silent, waiting for an answer to an injustice that feels far older than this war. General George S. Patton is miles away, but he is already closing the distance. The street sign will not stay blank for long. November 1944. A small village in Lorraine, France, sits quiet under a gray autumn sky. 200 villagers gather in the town square, their faces hardened by years of occupation and recent liberation. They hold a petition, a single sheet of paper bearing 200 names. They want to rename the main street to honor the man who saved their children from a German sniper's bullet. But the American military governor stares at the document and shakes his head. He refuses to authorize the sign. He says the name of a black soldier would send the wrong message to the ranks. The villagers stand their ground. The governor prepares to crush their request with cold, administrative finality. He does not know that the petition is already on its way to 3rd Army headquarters, where a man with 4 stars and a very short temper is about to read it. What Patton did when an officer blocked a French town from naming a street after a black hero. November 1944. A small village in Lorraine, France, is quiet, save for the rhythmic clatter of hammers. The local council works under a cold gray sky, putting the finishing touches on a wooden street sign. They intend to honor a man who died on this very corner, shielding a young girl from German sniper fire. But the work stops abruptly. A jeep pulls into the square, tires crunching over loose gravel. A military governor climbs out, his face set in a mask of rigid disapproval. He stares at the sign, then looks at the mayor, shaking his head. The official orders the workers to take it down, declaring the name unacceptable for public display. The villagers stand frozen, their gratitude curdling into sharp, silent resentment. Before the sun sets, a message is sent toward 3rd Army headquarters, seeking a final, undeniable judgment.